Me too.
And we're live. So, welcome to the Dealing Death
Excellent.
one. Writing the death of beloved characters, how you processed it, and how your readers responded. What made the death necessary to the story, and how it shapes the other characters. We are on the Dealing Death panel. So, I would love to just go around the room and have our authors introduce themselves. Lars, would you like to start us off?
I would love to. Well, Lars Mackmuller, nobody's able to pronounce it. Just do whatever the hell you want to. It's cool. I write Lit RPG and Gamelit. I write underdogs. I write the characters who are usually not the main characters, but those who come up with twisted, fucked up solutions for the problems and sometimes come up with problems of their own. And I basically just love to throw my characters into deep shit and then most often have them make it.
Katie?
I'm Katie Hanna, and I write Library System Reset, Somnia Online, other books. And I tend to very stubbornly only write female main characters. And I like to specifically target characters people like to injure, maim, or kill them.
Cool. Rose?
Yeah, I'm Rose Reynolds. I guess we're just like what's our spiel? Like what kind of stuff we write?
Sure, why not? And like what you've done, what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm writing books. I think I just seem to always write books where if you're not crying, then you just don't like me as a person. But yeah, I like to write loss and death and sad stuff and people recovering from pain. It just always happens. I don't mean to.
Shami?
I'm Shami Stovall. I write a wide variety of books. I guess I might be on the wrong panel because I like fun adventures with lots of fun characters. I do like death, but I like it very sparingly. If death is happening all the time, it gets really like not emotional anymore. Like, that's the 15th character that died, George R. R. Martin, and I'm not done with the first chapter. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't care anymore. But when death happens kind of infrequently, when it does happen, it feels like world shattering. Like, oh, geez, I didn't expect this to happen. So I do like emotional beats that pull at your heartstrings or make you like really think about the moment. But for the most part, I am a fun adventure. You know, I'm the person who goes around saying I have a series that's like Pokemon meets Harry Potter, you know, like that kind of book series. So that's me.
So I guess then on the topic of the world-shattering stuff and the infrequency of death to make it more impactful, would you mind all sharing with me a sort of a key kind of like character death? Now, maybe not even within your own stories or in your own worlds. Just to start off on a much more broader spectrum, within any form of media, a character death that really impacted you, and as a creative looking at it, being like, "Fuck, that was well done." Lars, do you want to start us off?
Totally. Really, very much so. I mean, what I really do love is when a character death just blindsides you, when you don't see it coming at all, and it changes the way you look at a series. I don't know how many of you here have actually watched Arcane, the League of Legends series, but that I'm not going to get too spoilery here, but by chapter 3, or episode 3, sorry about that, I figured I had the entire series figured out, knew where it was going, and then it just went and sucker punched me so bad. That's the kind of death I really absolutely love.
Amazing. Katie?
He Who Fights with Monsters in book 1, when what you think is an extremely key character dies, and I was like, fuck you! I was so pissed. Like I was angry through end of book 1, 2, and 3. Like pissed off. And then when shit happens later on, I was mollified by this, but that wrecked me because I loved that character. So I was really pissed, dude. Like so angry, like Aussie fucking angry, mate. Like
What about you, Rose?
I'll just do one that I watched recently. I watched the Star Trek New Discoveries with that one. The one where Spock is super hot. Like whatever. just yeah.
He so
Um,
is.
Yeah, right. There's
Everyone Googling.
there's a
Spock.
character named Hemet. And right, Katie? Okay, so he's got this like dad role and like a master role in a way. And there's been like a few different foreshadowing things. So you expect a death early on, and he has a close call, and he makes it, and everyone comes back, and it's nice. And then the finale happens, and he doesn't, and he has to sacrifice himself, and it's part of the plot, and it's meaningful. It hit hard. I cried, and I was pissed, and I also tipped the hat because it was well done. You know.
Also, don't Google super hot Spock. It's not what you expect.
Yeah, don't do that.
You should do that. That's good.
Shami?
I mean, I guess if I had to think of like super impactful deaths that have affected me for like my entire life, when I was younger, Littlefoot from The Land Before Time, his mother dying was super sad. I also thought that Mufasa dying in The Lion King was really super impactful. I really liked the Red Wedding from the Game of Thrones series in terms of writing. I really liked Robb Stark, and I didn't think that he would die. And so when he did, and in the way he did, it was like it was crazy over the top. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think just because of the first two ones that I mentioned, like parents that die always really get me. And not to be like the person that brings down the party or whatever. I'm totally fine when I say this, but my father died when I was really, really young, when I was 4. So those types of deaths, I do think stick with me longer. So that's why I think about those whenever people bring up this question.
I just wanted to say Atreyu, the fucking horse.
No,
Like,
Yes,
Right,
yeah,
you
of
Oh,
course,
the ones
definitely.
those ones
No.
were too painful. Like The
Yeah.
Land Before Time, you can see all it shows of the violence is the shadow, the silhouette, and there's a piece of her missing. And I was like, oh, she will never be the same. And then she doesn't make it. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
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 That's
really, really emotional.
yeah. Artax, fucking. Wow.
And
That still
goddamn
gives me
Macaulay Culkin.
goosebumps.
Macaulay Culkin. Okay, what was the... Oh,
My girl,
That
my
movie
girl.
with the
Yeah.
exactly.
Fucking my girl.
okay, that was
Oh my
that was
god, fuck
formative.
that question, Brian.
Sorry, why do you think I asked to be moderator?
You're such a downer.
Sorry, more misery, please. So, now, who was your favorite character to kill? Lars.
Okay. I killed off one of my favorite, most wonderful, heartwarming persons in my Dragon Core Chronicles. I have this race that's a mix of mole men and wolves. So it's like they're super cuddly diggers with slightly longer claws, but like super cute. And there was this one character who actually stood by the main character all the way through the book. And then at some point I just figured out she has to die. Sorry. I mean, she is in the right place at the right time, and she will perform a wonderful service for the story if she actually dies, because it will be meaningful and it will work. And I became a bit sad, but it just worked. So it was super weird. It was wonderful and it was sad at the same time. Don't know.
You're evil, man. Katie?
Okay, so I haven't really killed many people in Lit RPG yet. I have one character that dies from book 3 to 4, but nobody's read that yet in library system. So, but actually, what I usually do, and I did in my very first trilogy, I create a character specifically to kill them later. So I make sure that you tug at the heartstrings, that this character is loved, that this character's loss will be felt, and then I kill them. And that's a lot of fun because you can like get it, like their entire purpose, as far as I'm writing, is to die. People don't know this until they get to where they die. And I did that to 2 characters in my Domino Project trilogy, and that was really fucking cool. Actually, it was awesome, and it got the reaction I wanted. It was perfect.
So when people ask you, tell you how much they love that character, how loud do you cackle?
Well, I mean, I mute myself first, and then I cackle, and then I just, oh yeah, they're great. Yeah, I'm so glad you love that character. I love them too, for an entirely different reason.
That's a lot more like psychopathic than I had intended. I was just like, I create them for their death. So, Rose, what about you?
There you go. My mouse stopped working. Yeah, I guess it did sound a little bit unhinged, but that's just author work right there. I'm gonna name one that came to mind as like when kind of like a villain died, like a bad guy. And ironically, something else died at the same time. So in my Eternal Online series, they face Fafnir, which is there's like 2 races of ancient dragons, and Fafnir is like the forefather of this one race. And he's powerful and awesome and used to be a kind of like, he's not a bad guy, but he's being a dick and needs to die because he's in their way kind of vibe. And so Alasan, the bullet bard, shoots him with a god bullet and sacrifices his power at the same time. So Alasan's power begins to die, kind of like All Might when he gives away his spark. So I know it. So I like wrote it, and it's the loss of magic that always hurts me. So it's like the rock creature from Neverending Story where he's crumbling, or it's something like that. It's like the loss of it where you're just like sick, but it's true. It feels true. So you just get the goosebumps everywhere. And I'm like, fuck, I can't believe I cried for a bad guy dying, but I did. That was a good one.
And Shami?
At the end of one of my series, I had the main character die, and it was great in a way because it's the conclusion of, I guess, the male story arc, because he was a nobody, but then he raised up to be the hero and a pillar of the community and had a family, and then later gets to rest. It's that, like, you get to lie down your sword and you get to stop fighting. That's your the eternal rest, really, for a warrior. And it was just very emotional. I still get emails to this day about people saying that they really liked how that concluded. So I think that was my funnest death that I've ever written, because most of the time the deaths aren't fun. Like, I don't have a great time writing them. So
I like how you got thanked for your death. Like, hey, that was really good. Whereas we get like, oh my god, you bitch.
Whoa.
So, this is 2 different parts to this one, and you can answer the first part or the second part. Is there a character within one of your works that you think the story would have been better with their death? Or, on the other side of it, is there someone whose death could have been prevented and would have made the story stronger? Lars, I'll give you like 14 seconds, but it's Europe. Just stare at us in silence for like 10 seconds.
I need a clarifying question. Is this in our books or somebody else's books?
In your own books. In your own books. As in, like, is there like, and you can just be like, no. Everything that needed to die died. It would have been better without it. No. So, Lars?
I'll have to twist it a bit, but I'll have to go with, I actually went into my newest deck builder, my Theft of Deck series, specifically writing a character to die in book 1. It was supposed to be meaningful. He had to die. And then I put him in the position and I couldn't. And I think it was actually the better for it, even though I wanted him to die. I think it became better when he survived.
Yeah. No, that's totally that works for me. Katie?
In the Domino Project, I actually think my specifically intentional deaths, like they were built into part of the story. They were specifically done for reactions for the main character to have to them. I feel like that I couldn't have done that better. There was somebody I killed in System Apocalypse Australia. I just remember thinking, oh, like in book 3, shit, I should have killed them last book. But I don't think it made it any worse. I just think I could have taken it in a different, like some of the fights in a different direction if I hadn't killed them. But I don't think it made it worse. And I haven't killed enough people in library yet.
Yes. Rose?
Yeah, Katie, what are you doing? You're like doing your normal cutesy shit, and then you're like, and then also, like right before you sign off, and it's like, what the fuck just happened? Are you still Aussie? Are you still a little friend? Not yet. It's gonna get bad. Ooh.
Dude, I love violence.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
This is
I love
character
writing
building
violence.
right now for Katie. I did not
That's
know.
actually, I mean, what I love about Katie's shit is that even though it can be cutesy as hell, there's so much of it that has a horror undertone. And you don't always notice it, but then sometimes it just creeps in there. And
Yeah, horror
when
was
it
my
does,
first love. So
oh yeah,
I love putting in like dark tendrils of really cool shit. So
Tendrils. I would say that I had a death that a lot of my fans thought was a terrible thing, and I fucking think that I was right. So I write some slutty books. At the end of my Towers of Akalia series,
oh no, stop! I haven't read that far. Don't do this to me, Rose.
Really?
Okay, I'll
Headphones off.
Yeah, headphones off. Well, shit, it's been out for a while. If you haven't finished it, fucking finish it. I killed one of the harem girls. She can be revived, but basically I broke that as a rule. You do not do that in those books. And I broke that rule, and it was so good, and I cried, and it was meant to be. And then there is an ability, there's like an opening for resurrection later, whatever. I love you, Lars. I hope you didn't hear that.
Back on.
All right, good.
We're all good now. But we didn't warn any
oh
of
my
the
god, Rose, how could you do that?
we didn't warn any of the listeners to not type in what Rose just said. So might happen, Lars. And what about you, Shani?
To be honest, I don't think I should have had extra deaths anywhere in my stories. Like I said, I write mostly for like a fun adventure, and the deaths come sparingly. I guess it would just be a different story. You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be a different story if bodies were hitting the floor constantly than the one that I wrote. And I don't know if there was a death that I shouldn't have had happen because I use them so infrequently and purposeful. I mean, there are some deaths in which a lot of the readers didn't like that, but that was the point. You know, the bad guy kills some people and they're like, I don't like that. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, so no, I thought about it the whole time while people were answering, but I don't think I have one where I'm like, I should have killed that guy and I didn't.
Okay, so here's a sort of different style of a question, I guess, then. For those of you that know ahead of time that you are going to be killing a certain character off, what is the thought process in how the character is presented to the readers? Do you want this to be like the ripping of the Band-Aid? Do you want them to be emotionally distraught with this death? Or are you kind of like, okay, let's maybe throw in a few personality quirks to make it less painful for them? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to all of this. Lars.
I don't know if my characters are going to die most of the time. Like 95% of the time, I have no idea if they're going to die. So it's basically gonna be as surprising for you as for me. I am mostly a pantser with a loose outline written, which I follow sometimes. But yeah, no, I don't write my person specifically to because I want the emotional reaction to be in a certain way. I write them to have a certain personality, and which of course can develop in one way or another. And then sometimes that their personal development just works best if they die. I haven't killed off a lot of people. It sounds like I'm super nuts. Sorry.
Katie?
If I have decided that that character is going to die, then I like to build them up so that the death is impactful, so that it really has meaning. So that like this grandfatherly old figure who has been really nice for the last like 3/4 of a novel is going to die in the next book. And I want them to like kind of feel that connection and that the character's loss from that. So yeah, I like to build it up and make it painful. Because you read fiction and you feel in fiction, and I feel like sense of loss is a big emotional attachment to a book. So
Oh, absolutely. Rose?
I'm gonna do another spoiler. It's my book, so get mad at me
How's
on
the book
Reddit.
first so we can take off the headphones?
No, it's from First Fist. It's the first book. It happens right in the beginning. It's not like a crazy thing. But Falco dies. And I wrote Falco to die. And it made me so sick by the time I was done fleshing him out, because he was a lot like Brian. Like he was like you, Brian, if he fucked and fought a lot more. He was just sparky and witty and cunty and mean and so sweet and loyal. He was really, really fun. And in a lot of series, he would have been the best friend that survived the entire arc. In a lot of other ones, he might have been the main character. But he dies right away as not like a lesson, but I was trying to turn tropes, like my main character in a cultivation book didn't have to go through the like young disciple stage, because he's already been dragged through. He's already like relatively old for a combat soldier and been wounded a bunch. And then his disciple we get that trope through him. Right. So I just wanted to do a lot of turns, and I just tried to write characters how they feel, like real, like 3-dimensional. So Falco is really problematic, but he's also so likable. So that, yeah, I got, who is it? Ryan DeBruin. I think he popped up on here, right?
Yeah.
Ryan said he threw my book. And then he texted me. He was like, "Fuck you." He's like, "Not only did I throw your book, I went for a walk, and then I came back and I picked it up again." And I'm like, yeah. So I played. It was a hard read in the first part of that series. So
you totally built him up before the death, though. I mean, you totally did. You had him have that little character development moment where he had his troubles, then he became stronger, then he was reaching the point where he might actually become somebody who was really worth being mentored by your main character. And then
that's how you do it.
Maybe not that gesture. Lars.
Well, she does write harem books sometimes. I mean,
that's it. Shami, over to you.
It works best if there's a twist.
Yeah, if I know a character is going to die, if they only have the one book, I do specifically make sure every single one of their scenes is somehow meaningful or rememberable. Like that kind of thing. I want them to leave an impact on the reader before they're eventually going to be killed off. if I think they're going to die in like 5 books from now, I don't have quite as like where I'm like, oh, I better make sure every single scene they're in is a banger. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, okay, just work on this character like you would any other character, because I don't want to give the writing on the wall, you know, oh, this guy's definitely going to die. You know what I'm saying? But if it's a singular book appearance, I will try to make their scenes like really memorable. Either they're very funny or they have some sort of unique trait about them that is really likable. You know, they save 13 cats in the scene they show up in, and you're like, wow, what a great guy. And then he gets cacked. Something like that, because I feel like the death is only, that's not true. I think the death is meaningful in how people react to it afterwards. Like, is anybody going to care? If nobody cares, then who cares about this death? So people have to care. Not only does the reader have to care, but the people in universe have to care. So if this character was just a bumbling schmo and then he died, you're like, okay. But if this guy had potential, you know, like Rose was doing, where you're like, whoa, they could have been somebody great. And then when they die, the impact that it leaves on all the remaining characters is, this was a terrible loss to the world, because this character could have been amazing. So I really keep that in mind when I'm going to kill a character. It's the impact that it will have after their death. And if there isn't any impact after the death, then who gives a shit? So I need to make sure there was a lot of impact.
Love that. So there was a question from Robert. He said that we've all experienced the killed character coming back to life, like Jon Snow, Oliver Queen, Spider-Man, Black Widow. Have you done it unplanned, and why, and or how do you feel about it? Anyone want to hop in on this one first?
I did totally use this in my series, but I knew it was going to happen. So I would never do that unplanned. I feel like that would just be, I don't know, cheap to the audience who's reading this. If you were just like willy-nilly, I guess he came back to life. I only had a character resurrect because in my series, I had set up long ahead of time the rules for resurrection. And so when I do it, I felt like, it's okay. This wasn't like a cheap rando thing. This was clearly planned out.
It was established.
Yeah, it was established. We had foreshadowing to resurrection. All these things were happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel bad about my resurrection at all, because I totally 100% had that planned. But I have been angered by stories that are just like, well, I guess he's back alive. Optimus Prime just gets to live again, you guys. LOL. Sorry, we made a mistake killing him.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I actually have a bad guy in Library System Reset that I meant to kill the first time around. And then as I'm writing his death, and after a few chapters when they were like analyzing it, I was like, oh, but he's a slimy bastard. So he could easily come back to life. And that becomes actually a huge plot point. So that was a surprise, coming back to life. Because as we've already established, I like killing characters. So I brought him back to life, and he's still kicking. So,
Lars or Rose?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just gonna. Okay, I can't. I'm blanking. I've written a lot of books, but I can't think of a close call or anything right now. But this dungeon is delicious. I haven't even seen the conclusion where it goes, but the premise is freaking hilarious. Where one of the MC's sisters gets eaten by a dragon, but you can revive if you have enough of the remains left. And they're like, well, how long is it going to take to get down there? And like, that dragon species has like a really slow digestion. We've got a few weeks. So this chick is literally being digested by a dragon for several weeks while they're trying to go find her to revive her. I thought it was very hilarious and weird. I don't even know if she gets revived, but yeah, that's adjacent. It's a good anime.
Yeah.
Well, so Rodimus Prime in the comments, somebody mentioned Rodimus, but I like Rodimus too. What the hell? How come we didn't get more of that guy?
And Lars, anything to add?
Nope, that's not my favorite trope in general. I mean, when you do it really, really well, it works, but haven't done it myself.
There was another question that was quite funny from Byron Maltby. Do characters that say they are getting married when they get back to 10 ever survive? Lars.
Also, how come people can't just retire? You can't just fucking retire in fantasy. That's just like, I made it, I can go home. No, you can't. You poor bastard.
But yeah, is there the happily ever after for these characters, or are they all killed off screen?
Well, I think that trope is a trope or a cliche, really, because that's the super fast way to get you invested in a character. Like that's the speed run version of how you get invested in a character. Is the guy shows up on screen and he's like, "Man, I really love my fiance. She's so great. She bakes me cookies, and I can't wait until this war is over so I can go home and marry her, and we're gonna live happily ever after because we're true loves." And then he gets immediately killed like 2 seconds later. Like you're now super invested in this guy in like the shortest amount of time. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what that cliche is. It's the same with the retirement. Man, I've worked on the force my entire life, and this has been totally great. And I've loved trading you, newbie, but I'm gonna be out of here tomorrow. And then when he gets killed, you're like, oh no, this was his last day. You know, like I
It's so
get
funny
it.
though, because with that, I would then like, for me, I'm like, oh, why did you say that? Like that's just I don't get invested in those because I find that trope is just too like, I'm just like,
Well, it's
well,
become
it's your own
cliche.
fucking fault.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have tempted fate like that. Like, dude, what were you doing?
Running with it is awesome, though. Like, no, why the fuck would you show me that letter to your girlfriend? Why would you do that? You know what's happening now.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Why?
I do kind of want to change the question out to ask what are your favorite death flags, because those by Shami are fantastic. I'm like, oh wow, it's like where you're just reading it and you're like, oh shit. Like if I turn this page, he dies. Like I could save him by not turning the page.
That's the most meta of commentary, self-commentary. If I don't read it, it doesn't exist. It's Schrodinger's death.
Oh man, just like taking the scissors, being like, nope. Anyway, moving on.
Nope. Just rip the page out. Look, he's still alive.
I would never deface a book like that. Anyway, yeah, sorry. So Rob says I should have softballed it. Oh, sorry, JD. Yeah. So Robert's one was they should have softballed it. How about regret killing a character? Damn, killed him off too quickly. Happened to anyone?
We kind of already did this one.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But are there any questions or like, themes
Sorry.
within this that you would like to discuss? Because my questions on this topic, because like I like Pokemon and Harry Potter, Quest Academy, no one's died. I don't kill characters, so I'm like moderating this,
Yeah,
being
they
like,
haven't.
do you like killing people? Like
My first is
so
the death of me. Fuck Robin.
yeah. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to ask some questions, they will be far better than mine. So please,
Ooh,
please
I've got a good starter.
Of course.
In general, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite death tropes. It is a trope. It's cliche. It's on the nose and it's overdone, but it gets me every fucking time. I already sort of hinted at it. Death of Master, right? So we get it a bunch in Kung Fu, where like you get this really sagacious guy that's really good and everyone loves him, and the MC/disciple just thinks he's great, and then we see him like walk home from getting like steamed rice buns or something, and then like a gang gets him, or more commonly like someone who's been fighting all the masters so he can be known as the greatest comes. I forgot, I'm like specifically this from a movie, but they kill the master. Or the master has to step in when MC is not ready to face the enemy, and everyone knows what's going to happen. So the master says, I've got this, go on, keep doing well.
And Master does not have it.
And then he dies, and it just rips my guts out. But then it makes way for MC to develop, mature, and get stronger. That's probably one of my favorite tropes.
Obi-Wan. Like, so it's just like
Ip Man. Fucking awesome movie.
I just got goosebumps.
yeah.
Well, the mentor dying is one of the greatest death tropes. You know, it's I don't even think it's cliche. I think it's still just a trope, but it's
It
like
fuels
removing
revenge.
well, it's removing the safety net from the main character, right?
Mm.
Because as long as the mentor is still around, theoretically the main character is safer because the mentor can step in and save them at any time. So as soon as the mentor dies, you're like, oh no, nobody else is going to come to save the hero now. The hero has to do it all on their own. So I think that's why it's really, really useful storytelling technique.
Yeah.
If I could
Nice.
continue along this line, I actually love the idea of a favorite death trope question. I mean, what is your favorite way, your favorite trope to use for a death? I think for me, it's probably the redemption arc. I mean, somebody just, he knows he's done wrong, he's been a villain, whatever, and then he just goes and saves the day by throwing his life
Mm.
away, just
Boromir.
saving
Boromir,
Yeah.
right? It's like by the time he gets the third arrow in his chest, you're like, oh, he's not gonna make it, and then it just keeps going, and you're like, no.
exactly. It just it works for me.
I love that. In that same vein, I love the just the kind of not doesn't stand out all the time, isn't like the most powerful, isn't the favorite, but has like one amazing moment where they sacrifice themselves for their teammates or their siblings, and it's just like this redemption moment, like you said. But they don't need to be a villain. They can also just be this character who has never ever, like, you know,
The pilot from Independence Day.
But did you ever read, was it Trust the Legend? Was it The Quest for Lost Heroes or Trust the Legend, where essentially all these people that were not fit to be soldiers essentially throwing themselves off the battlements to take down the enemy ladders? Like, it was essentially just it was one of the best, like, heroic sort of like death scenes of like terrible soldiers just like being the best they've ever been, just on that final defense. Like Helm's Deep, you have that, like, that we are woefully fucked, but like, let's give it a go. So no, I do love that.
Yeah, totally. Like also in Malazan, Book of the Fallen, which has so many deaths. So I mean, that is a dark fucking series. But in book 2, there's this scene where basically it's a caravan of refugees that is transported by a bunch of just hard-bitten soldiers. They're trying to save them, walking across an entire continent while they're constantly beset by other soldiers. And at one point, everybody just snaps, and you get like thousands and thousands of civilians just throwing themselves at the enemies, and they save everybody, but like a huge part of their number dies. And it's super emotional and also horribly gory scene, but that one got to me.
I think my kind of favorite character death moments, maybe it's just because I really like Dragon Ball Z, is when good friend of main character dies to motivate main character to do a thing. Okay, Krillin
and then comes back to life.
Well, I don't know about Dragon Ball Z's, like, everybody just gets to have 30 billion lives. You know what I'm saying? But when it first happened, when Krillin first died, and my little Shammy's little brain was broken, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh no, not Krillin. And then he goes Super Saiyan for the first time, and I was like, this is so bitchin'. Even if it took 40 episodes for that fucking 2-minute fight, I was here for all 40 episodes. You know what I'm saying? Like, on the edge of my seat, being like, my God, they've only got 1 minute and 30 seconds until the planet explodes. God. So yeah, I was
17 weeks later.
Yep, I was into that the entire time.
Like, little Brian brain was kind of like, wouldn't it be great if Vegeta could, like, I don't know, win? Like, just once. Can we just let Vegeta win? He's the best. He's the best.
Never ever wins.
Kakarot. I love it.
Yeah, Vegeta's amazing. I really liked Trunks. That was another thing. Little kid me was like mind blown when Trunks comes back from the future, alternate timeline future, and I'm like, this is the greatest shit of all time.
Cell Saga for me. But the my brain is just now completely in Dragon Ball Z.
I have
I
another
have no regrets. Yes, please, Rose. What question?
Okay, it's very similar, but what about a time when the villain dies and in so doing redeems themselves and gets such a like rounded a rounding of their character that you no longer hate them, and it does a thing and it's like well deserved. It's to me it's happened a few times that like really work, but I'll just list one. The probably one of the best is Gollum. You know, Gollum is sort of a villain. I don't know, but he's also super necessary, and he, in a weird way, saves Frodo's life and all of Middle Earth. And when he drops into the lava, you feel relief, you feel anger because of the injustice, and you feel lost. Like it hurts. You're so sad because he has suffered for literally hundreds of years. That one blew my mind, and I was like, "Damn, I used to hate Gollum." Not anymore.
I'm like the most heartless person in the world because that is just had no impact on me.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
Dude, one of
monster.
my favorite actual tropes of all time is villain character redemption. I mean, maybe it's because of Vegeta, because I did like Vegeta, but I really like when bad guys become good guys. So I actually
Vader.
hate when the bad guys die after they've gone through a redemption. Like if they go through any sort of redemption and then they die, hate it. Immediately angered. Like I'm like, no, I wanted them to be a good guy now. God damn it. Like what the fuck? Like, so, you know, I guess Darth Vader kind of had a good death because he threw the Emperor over. But since Palpatine just keeps coming back, you know what I'm saying, in every other subsequent sequel, that's ruined. Back in the day, it was a good death, but that's the only one that I even slightly kind of like, and even then, it's only slightly.
Like, I agree with that completely. On my bookcase back there is Exile's Return by Raymond E. Feist, which was Duke Caspar of Velasco, which is one of my all-time favorites. Of like, he had been mind controlled for the previous books, and he's just there on like an island with fucking monsters with chained up, and he's like, "Guess I'm gonna take back my dukedom," and I'm like, "Let's fucking go!" So, love that. So what about yourself, Lars or KT?
What was the question?
Oh, sorry, Rose's. Yeah.
It's the when a bad guy dies after redemption. Rose said that she liked Gollum's death, and which one of those types of deaths was really impactful for you?
Yeah, that was totally Vader for me. I mean, 100%.
Oh yeah. No, I don't really have one of those. But I do love villain redemption arcs. Like I love them, but I can't really think of anything that's really stuck out for me.
So I suppose within the genre, are there any sort of like writers within lit RPG, progression, fantasy, and stuff that when you like come across a character you really like, you're like, oh fuck, so like,
dude,
I know what they're gonna do. so can you tell me any of those characters or any of those authors?
I can tell you the author. I don't want to spoil He Who Fights with Monsters 11 for anybody, but I was very fucking pissed. Just I may have told Shirt I was very fucking pissed.
Occasionally, just because I know authors in the genre now, but this happened maybe just a couple of weeks ago. I was reading a book and I really liked the character in the book. It was like an NPC that was given life by the main character. Like it was meant to be like a tutorial NPC, but the main character liked the tutorial NPC so much that he uses one of his boons to give him like life and be like it's his own character. And I liked that so much that I wrote the author and I was like, hey, before I finish reading this book, does this character die? Does the tutorial NPC die? Because I'll be so angry if it does. And they were like, no, totally okay. He's a character for the rest of the book. And I was like, okay, good, because I'm watching you. This better not die. Like,
but yeah, Rose, anyone come to mind?
We've got a lot of character like plot armor in our genre. It happens because people usually can get brought back to life or resurrected or not everyone digs the really dark stories. I'll drop my friend's name. Grayson Sinclair writes some literally just dark fantasy. He writes some deaths in there. But yeah, I can't think of a good one to answer your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, like, and with Grayson, I remember when I was reading the Hive Knight Ouroboros, I was like, I am too emotionally fragile, Grayson. I can't read this for you. But no. Well, actually, there was in the comments someone had put in Naruto, and I think one of the really really cool things with that is like you have Choji, you have all of these moments where you're like, oh shit, is he dead? Have you ever had that sort of moment in your stories where you have intentionally left the reader wonder if a character is dead? And then just like, either to come back with the resolution later on. We've had it with Hinata, even with Naruto, of like when, anyway, sorry. But just out of curiosity, have you ever done this to your readers of just leaving them in wait to find out the conclusion?
Yes, I just did it in book 3, end of book 3 in Library System Reset, and my my road readers were oh fuck for a few chapters, so that was kind of fun. Yes, and that was really good, and I meant to do that, and it felt great.
Evil.
No, but going back to the other one, I just want to mention another honorary Sinclair, Kevin Sinclair, because reading his God of the Feast, that was one. I mean, for me, deaths for plot reasons, that's amazing. And when it's done well, it super works. But what really gets to me is when you use a death to set the tone. I mean, to just tell the reader that you don't have any fucking clue what's going on here. You cannot figure out where we're going
I'm
with
still
this.
angry at that chapter because
Right.
the title of it as well, Dad's Ketchup. And it was like, I was like, Dad's Ketchup. As in, like, what does that mean? One of the characters' his name is Daz, and then like, and you're like, oh god, Dad's Ketchup. It's just so stupid and horrifying.
And it's like until then, it's been mostly a happy read, and like you can see they're growing a bit stronger. Everybody's getting happy, and then we know which way this is going, and then no, you fucking don't. That I love, using a death in order to shock, awe, and just tell the reader they have no clue where we're going.
Yeah, and on that point, Lars, like Stuart just put in, the adventurer dying in the prologue of Everybody Loves Large Chests. That was an excellent subversion of expectation. Of just being like, oh wow, we're following this adventure. Oh, he's not the character. Cool, gotcha. So, Rose, any sort of?
Yeah, I wrote. This is actually where the character does die, but is resurrected. Eternal Online. Pachi was like the main character's pet, really sweet, and at this point in the story, is the main character's only friend and ally. So like Hana's got it rough. She doesn't have a lot, and then they get in a little bit over their head, fighting some bad guys, and her pet dies, and she's devastated. But the cool thing is then she gets to like get gritty as fuck and carry this animal's corpse like 3 days hiking until she finds a fucking wizard and gets help resurrecting her. And then of course, when Pachi sort of is resurrected, there's loss and gain. She gets stronger, she gets a new power, and she also like carries emotional scars and will never fully be the same. So it's like it sucks and it's good,
Kind of devastating. Yeah. Well done.
I have a question for everybody, if you're cool.
Of course. Yeah.
So, what is your most violent death you have written?
I mean, violent as in like the gore factor, or violent as in the emotional factor, or violent as in the total number of deaths all at the same time? Like, what are we talking about?
Either emotional or gore factor. I mean, it can be either, or either a stab to the chest or just how gory and hyper violent it is. You decide.
I guess I wrote a character that was. I mean, I feel like this entire YouTube channel will be censored if I actually say what happened, but like a monster fucked him to death on screen. So, whoops. That was probably the most gory, like, and then that's shocking because of what happened. You know what I'm saying?
So, which Pokemon do you normally watch?
No. This wasn't for my Pokemon series because that's way too brutal for my Pokemon series. That's not what Pokemons do. Pokemons are fun.
We're gonna scar some kids today.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in my Pokemon series. But yeah, so there you go. Without going into details, because that would again get the YouTube channel in trouble.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty good one. Okay, so Savage Ascension was one of my harem series, and I was just like, I want to write a series that has like fucking and not just making love, and I want brutal violence, and I had a good time. It was for me. But there's a couple scenes where the main character is sort of addressing the guy who needs to get murdered because he's been a piece of shit. And the way that he does it is sort of like he's capable of ending it quickly. But instead, he's like, I'll take out that tendon, that tendon. He like hits him in the face, cuts out his tongue, and then cuts his head off. And it all happens really quickly. And you're like, oh God. And then he like literally hands the head off and says, here, go give that to the city lord. Tell him I sent it. And that's the end of book 1. And I'm like, fucking fire. It was so fun. Lots of murder. Yeah, escalate is quick.
Yeah. Okay, so in my Domino Project series, one of the characters that I specifically built up for death gets pretty much like dismembered. So that was one of my, but I mean, they're at war. There's a lot of people dying. She's not the only person who dies. She's just the only important person who dies in that scene. So that one is actually pretty violent. If you've ever read my fight scenes, they're all pretty dark and violent. Like they're not, oh yay, happy-go-lucky firing, magic missiles everywhere. There's a lot of gore in there. But probably one of my favorite deaths in my series that I will eventually finish. Rise, it's called the Last Chance series, and it's an urban fantasy lit RPG that nobody wants to read but me, but that's okay. The main character, you learn this in the first like 15 pages, she actually dies. She dies and the system boots in because she dies by electricity, and that becomes her ability. Her death is pretty cool because she gets electrocuted. So that would probably be one of my favorite deaths.
I think that's my favorite death of yours as well.
Yes.
I love that. Love that series.
Thank you.
Lars, that was your question, but what was your answer for it?
Okay, I was actually just coming up blank for a second, thinking, well, I actually usually write relatively clean deaths, but then I suddenly remembered my Cyberpunk series, and I had the insanely drugged up tech affected, the Cyberpunk thing when people get addicted to building their bodies with tech.
Cyberpsychosis.
Exactly. And there's this bad guy where they've actually managed to get an insider next to him, and she's like the main character's love interest, and everything's just going better and better, and she's calling them after she's said, well, okay, I'll help you, we'll figure this out. And she's calling them, starts talking to them, and then the camera zooms out and it's the villain standing right behind her, and then you just get the death scene where he just ends her right away. It's not hyper violent, but it's just that twist from, hey, we're in the middle of a happy, normal conversation, and then just goes straight to the death. That one I like that one.
Like, I honest to God think I just write sunshine and rainbows, and this panel has not changed that at all. But yeah, we're coming up to like 5 minutes left. So what we could do is we'll do our sort of outros first, and then we'll see if there's any other questions from the audience that we might be able to quick fire. So we'll go in reverse order this time. Shami, would you like to tell us more about yourself, where we can find you, what you're working on at the minute?
All right. My name is Shami Stovall. Shami, like the car cloth. I don't think I made that joke in the beginning of this panel, but it's my standard joke. You can find me anywhere books are sold. I mostly write progression fantasy and high fantasy, but I also have a lit RPG series, the Nexus games, and an urban fantasy, the Time Marked Warlock. Currently, I'm working on a like Japanese inspired progression fantasy. Super excited for it. Just finished the first book, so that'll be out in 2025. And yeah, if you like the sound of Pokemon meets Harry Potter, you should check out my Frith Chronicles. It's a completed series, so that's me.
Amazing. Rose?
Yeah, I'm Rose Reynolds. I write under 2 pen names, TJ Reynolds and also Atlas Kane. I've written a bunch under Atlas Kane, so check those out if you want things that are between the brutal fucky thing I said and also like kind of cutesy slice of life light novel, but with sex. But my TJ Reynolds series, I've got a few completed ones, and I'm working on First Fist, and I'm about to drop a new one. I just got the cover art. It's juicy. Yeah, I'm on Amazon and stuff. You can find me. Buy my books, please.
Amazing. And KT?
That cover art is amazing. Like, shivers amazing. Okay, I write books. My very first series, The Domino Project, which has lots of amazing death in it, is actually a cross between X-Men meets Blade Runner. It's seriously one of my favorite things I've ever written. And then I've got Somnia Online, 7-book lit RPG, VR MMO, but does leak into the real world, so that's fun. I've got the Rise, the Last Chance series, which is Rise and Rebel, or Rebel, whichever way. Both work. Eventually, I will finish the 3rd book. I promise. I've got System Apocalypse Australia, books 1 to 3, and then currently I'm Library System Reset, and books 1 and 2 are available on all platforms. Book 3 comes out in less than 4 weeks, and I will have artwork, I think, next week. So I'm really excited about that. You should all go and pre-order it. Yes, you should. Okay, that's me.
Amazing.
She also manages to snag Andrea Parsnow for all her audio, which is patently unfair.
Hey, she's one of my best friends, and she is amazing, and I love her.
Well, still unfair.
Lars, what have you written? And what are you writing?
I have written this series right behind me. I write underdogs. I write utility. I write those that normally shouldn't be the main characters. I write those that are the quirky background characters, the hacker, the bard, the ones that can't just go straight up to the villain and punch them in the face, but have to figure out some sideways solution and just get creative with it. And I write lit RPG and a bit of progression fantasy, but in general, I just love my gaming too much to go too far from lit RPG.
Lars, they're not going to be able to type your surname. Give them titles of names. Is it the Wayward Bard? Is it like, Broken Chains? What are we dealing with here?
Yeah, you need to look for a World of Change for my Bard series, my Dragon Core Chronicles for my Dragon series, or Theft of Dex and that's not Dix. Dex, Brian.
Theft of Dex, yes. And also City of Artem is Underdog as well.
Thank you very much.
But yeah.
Death of all decks.
And you can find Brian as well.
Yeah, it's just Quest Academy.
Quest Academy is bad as hell, though. It's really good. It's so good. And it's read by really good narrators.
Yeah, it's also a set of schools in South Africa, which I didn't realize they actually have Quest Academy as a school, and it keeps coming up in Google searches. Whoops. But yeah, Thank you all, everyone, for joining us. We're kind of coming up to time now, so probably end up doing a little Queen's Wave in 10 seconds. Anything anyone would ever like to add, just very, very quickly as we're waving away?
Death.
Kill your characters. Make an
Goodbye.
impact.
Bye.
Death is the
you.
ultimate goodbye.
Ultimate goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. We're not dying right now.